Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. I recently did a video about the gold rate from different sources, including trade in Age of Empires 2 HD. Now that Definitive Edition is out, I want to follow up on a point I was making about trade and pathfinding, to see if there's been any change to that, and if trade might be even more profitable in Definitive Edition. To start off, I have here a 12-tile route set up in HD. It's obviously not a great trade route since you want the markets to be as far apart as possible, but you'll see why I've done it this way in a second. Just running a single trade cart back and forth for 5 minutes, he generated 7.6 gold per minute. I then did a similar test with a trade cog over the same distance, and it generated 9.6 gold per minute. That's in line with what I found before, that trade cogs move faster, but generate the same gold per trip as trade carts. So at least in a vacuum, they're slightly better gold generators. But now let's ramp up the number of trade carts to 12. The point is to give them a challenging situation with a lot of bumping and see how they respond. I let it run for 5 minutes, and on average the trade carts generated about 4.24 gold per minute each. That's a 44% drop in efficiency, which in this case isn't all that terrible. There's one trade cart here per tile of trade route length, which is pretty extreme. For example, 2 players trading along the side of a medium map with 40 trade carts each would have about half this level of congestion. I then did the same test again but with trade cogs, and it was ugly. Over 5 minutes, the trade cogs averaged 3.9 gold per minute. That's a 59% drop in efficiency and even slightly worse than the trade carts, which at least on paper they should be outperforming. Now that we have our baseline, let's do the same tests in Definitive Edition and see how it compares. The rates with one trade cart and cog were the exact same, so it's safe to say the formula and underlying mechanic hasn't been updated. Any differences will be because of unit pathing. Repeating the test with 12 trade carts, they generated 4.55 gold for each cart per minute. That's a 40% drop in efficiency, which is basically the same as on HD. If there is a difference, it didn't show up in this kind of test. On the other hand, the trade cogs were very different. Where on HD they had a 59% drop in efficiency, this time it was only 40%. Overall, that implies trade cogs are impacted about the same by congestion as trade carts, but start with a much higher baseline of gold generation, meaning in this test at least, they made about 26% more gold. You can even see the difference by watching them for a second. On HD it takes 10 seconds for the first trade cog to break out from the pack, whereas on Definitive Edition the first one has broken out after just 6 seconds. You can also see they just don't bump off each other quite as much in DE. Now, I hear you, this is a bit of a contrived test. What would be better would be to recreate the long test I did in the last trade video with 100 trade carts and cogs along a giant Scandinavia map. The thing is though, I'd have to recreate it from scratch in DE, and the game is capped now at 2 times speed when testing, plus I queued up the units manually so they didn't all come out at once. There's no way I'd spend the better part of an hour recreating one test just to make you guys happy. I'm kidding, of course I did. Recreating the test in Definitive Edition, I got basically the same gold rate for trade carts as last time. I'm willing to chalk any difference up to small changes in the map. The trade cogs, on the other hand, only lost 10% of their efficiency to bumping, whereas last time on HD they lost 43%. That's a big difference. If we zoom in on the trade line, I think I even know why. On HD, anytime trade cogs passed by each other, it would lead to at least one of them pausing for a moment. It didn't even have to be a head-on collision. Now on a congested route, this is happening all the time. On the other hand, in Definitive Edition, they seem much more likely to glide right past each other unless it's a head-on collision. It looks to me like the units are simply smaller and act a lot more like trade carts, which also slide past each other pretty easily. If I had to guess, I think that's what's going on. Arguably, an even more important change though is a completely separate update to the trade unit's logic. Here in HD, you can see I sent a cart to trade with an ally market, and you can see it switches to the shortest route it can find. As we know, the longest route always gives the most gold, so this is unfortunate. In Definitive Edition, you can see instead it picks the longest trade route. For trade cogs in particular, that's amazing, because it means you can have multiple docks around the map to produce your navy, while those extra docks won't interfere with your longest trade route. Even new units created at a closer market or dock automatically switch to making the further one their new home market. I'm really excited to see this change because it means you don't have to worry about accidentally undercutting your trade routes with new markets or docks. And if that's not enough, there's even one more small change that was snuck in Definitive Edition, which is that dry dock actually helps trade cogs now. In HD, it sped up your trade cogs by 15%, like it does to all ships, but lowered the amount of gold you got proportionally, so you ended up with roughly the same gold per minute. In Definitive Edition, that reduction in gold doesn't happen, so civilizations with dry dock can make even more gold. To do the same 100 trade cog test again, with dry dock they generated 35.5 gold per minute instead of 35.1. The trade carts, for reference, were making 21.9 gold per minute, and in HD the trade cogs were generating even less at 19.7. Just imagine what that would be with a Spanish ally as well. Actually, you don't have to imagine, I'll just put the numbers up. So overall, it seems like the devs are really pushing to make trade cogs a lot more viable in Definitive Edition, and I think that's great. That's all for this one though. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.